Hi, everyone. This is Ron McKinney with Potty Photo. We're very excited to be joining Max Sirota of B&H Photo to moderate this conversation with Luis Pons. Luis is going to be talking about basically his career with dance photography, talk about some of his images that he's been doing. And if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to use the chat box. I think you can also put some in the Q&A as well, but we're going to be kind of like monitoring both. And from there, I'm going to turn things over to Max now.
Great. Thank you so much. So, my name is Max Sirota. I work with B&H on the marketing team. I've been doing a lot of Zoom conferences, and I'm very happy that Ron reached out to me and I get to have this lovely talk with Luis, or Luis, depending on how you're pronouncing it.
Yeah, these days, yeah.
I'm here to give an introduction and to facilitate, feed you some questions, but mostly just highlight you and your beautiful work. I'm actually going to read your bio from your website because I just think that's so well written and it shows a little highlight about you. So here we go. Without further ado. Luis Pons is a New York-based, world-renowned dance photographer whose images are described as eternal, exquisite, and breathtakingly memorable. His photography envisions the pursuit of beauty, symmetry, color, and contrasts, and is noted for capturing fleeting moments in the human experience. I love that. The defining moments where all the energies in the human heart, body, and spirit fuse together at 1/500th of a second are captured eternally by his work. His motivation for photography is to remind himself of the potential in all of us to be beautiful, serene, and at peace. And he shares this reminder to the world through his photographs. His work can be seen in publications across the world, such as BuzzFeed, HuffPost Arts, Elle, Epoch Times, Capezio's World Campaign, to name a few, and he has captured the most distinguished ballet dancers from ballet companies throughout the world, including New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theater, San Francisco Ballet, Art Company Ballet, and more. That's a beautiful introduction. I couldn't have written it any better, so delighted to have you here.
Thank you. And actually, I didn't write that because when I was making up my website and I needed a bio, one of the dancers that I worked with at Arch Ballet, she was like, "You don't have a bio," and I said, "I don't know what to say." So she wrote that for me. So
oh, beautiful.
Definitely wasn't something I would say about myself.
Well, that speaks to you, your work as a photographer. That somebody is so moved by your work to write a bio for you. That's great.
I loved it. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll use that." Thank you.
Cool.
So okay, so let's start from the beginning.
Cool.
As you know, my name is Luis Pons. I started photographing in 2011, somewhere around November. Actually, no, in December. And the real reason for that actually wasn't because I wanted to become a photographer. Photography is one of those things that just fell out of the sky and sort of, just hit me over the head. Around September, I had a very bad sinus infection. And it was terrible. And it took like 3 weeks, several antibiotics rounds. I don't know what I was doing, but it took about a month to get better.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't feeling better still. I was still very sick. And I didn't understand why I was still sick. So for another 2 months, I was just searching for an answer of what was going on. And eventually one of the doctors came to me and said, "I think you're depressed." And I said, "I've never been depressed. I've never felt down. I'm a very happy-go-lucky person. I'm always joking or the center of the party." And he says, "No, I think you're depressed because you're physically okay." And, around December, when I was still, madly looking for a doctor, my friend said to me, "Well, why don't you get a camera and why don't you take some photos? Because I heard it's very therapeutic. You can go out on the street and, take photos and just see what you feel, and maybe it'll help you." I bought the camera in December, but I didn't start using it yet because I was still going through too much. But once I had the diagnosis, I said, I got to get better. you know, I have to do something to get to a place where I'm functioning again. And the way I describe depression, because for me, it was a very physical manifestation for me. If you've ever been in the pool and you've been with water up to your chest and you start walking, that's what walking felt like to me. I felt like I had instantly aged to like 80 years old, and just movement became so slow. Everything was just horrible, and I wasn't sleeping. So then let's add more doctors, and we get another doctor who says, well, I'm going to prescribe you Klonopin because you need to sleep, and you're not sleeping. I hadn't slept in weeks, right?
Wow.
So for 3 months, I'm on Klonopin. I'm into the new year. And then I'm like, in the middle of the day, I'd always start feeling very sick. And I didn't know at that time that it was my body asking for another Klonopin. So somehow, in 3 months, my body had become addicted to this medication. And when I found that out, I just went cold turkey. And 2 days of that, I could not, absolutely could not do it. It was so horrendous. And I started a weaning process of like maybe 4 to 6 months, 5 to 6 months, which was hell. And if I didn't think that I knew about anxiety or depression, I really found out what those two were, trying to get off this medication.
Yeah.
So in the midst of that storm is when I went out with my camera to start taking photos.
Amazing.
And the photos I was taking, which I'll share some now. Let me get that up here. And let's start sharing my screen. Sorry, you're going to see me fumbling around.
That's all right. We've all done it before.
Yeah, I know.
It's the 2020 norm.
Yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Well, we're very well during the zombie apocalypse that we're enduring.
Yeah, true.
So the photos that I was taking were expressing what I was feeling, because you know when you're going through depression.
I'm still seeing a thumbnail over here.
Oh, really? Let
Yeah,
me maximize.
Yeah, what happens, Luis, is when it goes to a different program, you actually have to screen share to that program.
Oh, okay.
So it might be better if you highlighted all of these and then open them in that program and then screen share that, you know, like if you're using preview or whatever it is that you're using.
Like select all. Great.
So select all, okay.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then open and then screen share with the opened program.
First open them while you have them there.
All right, so let's stop the screen share.
Okay.
All right, because that's embarrassing. All right.
All good.
So oh, so you open the program is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
It gives you a few options about which one to share.
You'll open up whichever program they're opening up in.
Got it. All right, hold on.
Me too.
So the photos that I was taking, for the most part, and let me try to highlight all of these here without fumbling anymore. And we're gonna open these in. Send to.
In the meantime, This is a reminder. You can feel free to ask questions. We can queue them up as we're getting this technical stuff ready. You can use the chat and the Q&A. That's just a reminder to everybody tuning in.
All right.
Any questions? So
how is this?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Although I opened it up in an editing software. God.
It's okay.
That sucks. But hold on. I'm determined to get this, guys.
Okay.
Hold on one second. This is like bothering me. All right. Where is preview? Hold on. This is why I should have joined earlier.
That's okay. We did a test run, but you know, this is all good.
Hey, what's a Windows 10 app for the photos? That's just a regular viewer. I'm typing viewer, but it's not coming up.
I'm not a Windows 10 guy. Chuck Hunter just said photos.
All right, photos. There it is. Okay. All right. So I see it. Okay.
Way to go, Chuck.
Sorry. Thank you, Chuck. I'm sorry. I'm like ruining the flow of everything. I'll have to edit all of this out.
This is part of our life for this year, you know?
Yeah, and this also, it highlights that you're human, just like us, you know? All photographers.
I'm very human. Too
As we
human.
can tell from your beautiful story that you've been telling us. So thank you for taking us on a journey.
Yeah, so now let's try to highlight this real quick. And let's open. Where's my open?
By the way, everybody, it's defaulting for you to send your comments on the chat channel to all panelists. And if you don't mind, you can switch that to all panelists and attendees, and then everyone can see any questions or comments that you make.
Yeah, feel free to do that with the chat as well as Q&A. Once the Q&A is answered, that'll be public as well. Yeah, I guess as a very simple question, where is everybody coming from today? You can put that in the chat, put that to all panelists and attendees just so we can see. Like I mentioned, we have somebody from Brazil joining us, my wife, and I think I have some family members in California. Okay, we got Brazil, we have San Diego. Nice.
Okay. All right, so guys, I'm going to go back to my Zoom here. Zoom, and I'm going to share this screen. All right, hold on a sec. Share screen.
Okay.
What are you saying?
There we go. Nice.
Yes.
Full screen. Success. Well done.
Okay. All right. So the stuff that I was shooting was obviously not very bright, not very light. I would often go into churches in the middle of the day. Mind you, I kept my day job during this, which I still don't know how I managed to do that, but I kept my day job and I still work for a living. I'm not a photographer that does it full time. I have a corporate job, and at this time I was working for an advertisement company. So for my lunch hour, I'd go into places or be on the street, and I would look for people that felt like they were not part of the flow, not part of the movement of life. Because when you're in New York City, and you wake up in the morning and you start your commute, there is a juggernaut of energy moving into Manhattan. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone's trying to get there. And for the first time in my life, I completely was not part of that movement or that flow. So I was attracted to scenes like this where, people just seem to be out of that flow and in a pensive zone. I by no means call myself a professional street photographer. One of the photographers I love is Saul Leiter.
Yeah, he's great.
You should look up his movie In No Great Hurry, right? That's the movie, right?
I believe so, yeah. I've seen some of his books as well.
Oh, he's such beautiful work. And I didn't know about him at this time. So for me, this was just me purely as a novice looking for things that reflected who I was and how I felt.
Yeah, and you can see the emotion in these. And it's interesting that you've always been kind of drawn to people, it seems.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it's important that I highlight this because, well, I shouldn't give it away, but just remember that, this is how I started my photographic work, right? It was really a place for me to heal, a place for me to sort out how the hell this happened to me, how do I get out of this? And photography really was the best therapy because I didn't take any more. I was so scared of meds that I didn't take any antidepressants. I didn't take anything.
It sounded like the camera actually was a better medicine to you than anything else, which is an inspiring story. Yeah.
And it forced me to get exercise and walk. And, when I'd come back home and I knew that I captured an image that I loved, you feel that dopamine rush, right? You're excited to go home. You're excited to edit. Everyone feels that, right? When you get a great shot, you want to go home and you want to edit that photo.
Right. Yeah.
And that was like a great deal of what got me better. So,
I love this image. And these are all in New York, right?
Yeah, all in New York. And I was just attracted to people who seemed like they were pausing or thinking, anything like that, or someone who seemed very alone in their own head, in their own space. that was the kind of stuff that I was looking for.
Sure.
But after a while, I started to feel incredibly good. I started to feel really, really good. And I noticed on Facebook that there was someone who has commented on a ballet photo. And when I looked at it and I saw the symmetry and the lines and the exuberance and the happiness, I said, you know what? I wanna take some photos like that. So I started looking up ballet photos, and I came across Dane's work, the Ballerina Project, which is, a very famous project. Dane's been all over the world with it.
Sure.
And, this is the first time I hadn't even started really. And I already said, well, I'm going to quit. Because I saw his work and I said, there's no way in hell that I could produce any image that comes even close to what I'm seeing here. I don't know any dancers. I know I don't have his equipment. I was using a Nikon D3000 at the time with the stock lens, the 18 to 105. And I was like, I can't do this. But I said, what the hell? I'm going to go reach out to this dancer. Her name was Rochelle Di Destasio. And we went to a shoot around Lincoln Center, and I fell in love with it. I thought to myself, this is absolutely something that I would love to do. But of course, I don't know anything about ballet. I don't know anything about dance.
And what year was this, by the way? You said you started in 2011?
This is towards the end of 2012,
okay.
In the fall. So let me get some of these photos up because we got to share these because the editing is so gross. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but we should share it.
That's great. I mean, yeah, we have all sorts of attendees from, beginners, amateurs to pros, connected to this community. So we can all relate to that feeling of starting out.
All right. You guys can see the screen?
Yep, we can see it.
So I just a very simple portrait of Rochelle. Obviously, everything's blown out. The highlights are terrible, but I'm really just faking the funk here, pretending I know what the hell I'm doing. Obviously, the scene's very busy. It's blown out, but she's working with me. And this was a student from Gelsey Kirkland School in New York. Gelsey Kirkland is a famous ballerina. You can see her YouTube videos of her dancing, exquisite.
Yeah, it's a beautiful image.
She's just beautiful. So, again, I don't know what I'm doing here. One of the strongest images from these first tries is this one in Grand Central, just because it really has some movement in it. I'm working with multiple dancers. I love the fact that there's people in the shot. Usually I don't like people in my photos, but I think this kind of worked for me.
Yeah, this one's beautiful. If you don't mind staying on this for just a moment.
Sure.
Yeah, it's great. It's this iconic spot, Grand Central, New York City. You have the crowd, and then you have this whole different scene going on. It's like two different worlds blending. I love that. So this was staged, or this was improvised, or a little bit of both?
I've never been good at staging.
Okay.
So I told them, listen, because they all ballerinas turn, right? So I said, go down there, separate yourself. I was sort of yelling at them from up above because I was on a little higher level. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm shooting down.
Sure.
And I'm just like, keep spinning. And I put the shutter speed was a bit slow, obviously, to try to get some blur. And they must have spun for 30 seconds, God bless them, until I got a couple of photos that I felt were the right ones.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love this image.
And this one was one of my first photos that I ever worked in nature. And I didn't realize it then when I took this photo, but and God bless her, she's freezing for sure. But I'd be very attracted in my future photography to working in nature and working in the environment. So, any questions about that first year?
Even that last photo that you showed, it almost looked like she was bursting out of the ice, minus that little leg in the back. And that kind of reminded me of, on your site, you have a series called Emergence. So it seems like you were already onto that back in the day.
Yeah, and I didn't recognize that that would be something elemental, right, about how I work and how I do my work. So you take, sometimes in your career, you'll take certain photos and you don't realize that, that's going to be you one
Right.
day,
Yeah.
right?
It's
That's
under the
gonna,
layers, like in the subconscious.
yeah. You really don't, you don't have an understanding of that.
But you were attracted to this style of photo. So that's cool to see that in your early years. Very
Yep.
nice.
Louis, I've got a question here. Like you talked about the camera you're using, a D3000 and a kit lens. At what point in time, and it may be coming forward still in time, but when did you make a commitment to improve your equipment and go for even more impactful images?
Right around this time, because at that 6 years ago, there wasn't that much dance photography on social media. So there was Dane's work with the Ballerina Project. There was Ballet Zeta was there. I remember seeing him, but I think also David Hoffman, his work. He was around that time. So I saw, but it wasn't that much, right? So on social media, I started to get a lot of buzz, and I had 1,000 followers and then 3,000 followers on Instagram, and one of the things that I think beginning photographers might suffer from is that if you get a little bit of buzz, you get a little bit of recognition, at least for me, it got to my head a little bit. So I thought, like, that I had arrived, that I was doing this amazing work, people loved my work, and I started running around all over the city, shooting ballerinas everywhere in the city, and that's when I got a wake-up call, which was my photography mentor. His name is Douglas Dubler. And Douglas Dubler was a very famous beauty photographer from the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. It was like 700 magazine covers, really great guy. And he's a scientist when it comes to photography. He, like Zeiss sends him lenses to test.
How did you
right?
meet? What's the story of meeting your mentor?
He saw my photos on Facebook and he reached out to me, which says a lot about him.
Wow.
Because, he saw something in the work. I didn't show all my images, but he saw something in my work, and he said, listen, everything that you're doing, anybody can do. And he says there's nothing really particularly special about your images. He said I could teach somebody in 15 minutes to go and do what you're doing. And he said, and your editing sucks.
Well,
and
sounds like a nice guy.
But he was saying it from as rough as a way of saying something. He was saying it from a good place. And this is the second time that I wanted to quit in my career, because I realized myself as I took a step back, because I take feedback, even if it doesn't look like I'll take it well, like when your boss gives you feedback. But I do try to quietly absorb it in time. And I did realize that the vast majority of my work, if I grabbed someone who understood the machine that they were holding in their hands, right? They could shoot in manual. In 15 minutes, I could teach them to take these photos. And that was a great discouragement to me. And he said to me, you know what, you need to read up on photography. You need to read up on the history of photography. He said, you're not the first one to shoot anything in this world. Not anymore. The folks that did that were in the 19th century. They did all the first stuff. You didn't do it. So learn about them, get inspired by them, and try to find your voice in this medium.
That's good
And
advice.
I want to share some photos that inspired me. I think that's definitely worth seeing. Let's go back to my desktop. You would think that I would be so fast at sharing screens.
We're all good. We're just happy to be on this journey with you.
This is part of your editing, Luis.
Yes. So this is Anne Brigman. Now understand, this woman already is a trailblazer, because she's taking these photos between 1910 and 1920.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And what a trailblazer. So beautiful. And these photos spoke to me because and again, I didn't know at the time why they did, but I just knew that they did. And, you know, looking at her work, I felt something that I remembered, which was what I was trying to capture in my original work when I was doing street photography, which was to find someone looking inward, that silence, that solitude. But what she added to it was this connection, right? This link to the environment. And it's stunning work. And I wish more people knew about her. But, you know, these photos, when I saw these photos, they stayed with me. And I might as well stay here.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing
I,
that.
I went with, I had a dancer that I knew very well, Sarah Ezell. I hadn't worked with her yet, but I was expressing, you know, the conversation I had with Douglas, some of these photos that I had seen that were done in 1910 that I felt I hadn't even come close to even getting close to the magic that was in those photos. And Sarah says, you know, I think what you should do is that you should go, she saw those photos, I think you should go to places like that. I think you should go to environments that are abandoned, that have emotion, and that when you step into these environments, you immediately feel something, even though you haven't taken a single photo. And I said, well, who am I going to go with? You know, right? Because, you know, she had kind of been giving me the cold shoulder, right? I was saying, come on, let's go. You know, but she saw what I was doing, which was just shooting in the middle, you know, going out in the middle of the street and taking a photo of a dancer. And she didn't want to be part of that because Sarah was very soulful, is very soulful, very artistic, and she wants something that says something emotionally, right? But when I said I'd be willing to do that, she says, okay, I'll go with you, right? And the work that we produced, I'm just going to show two of those because
Bob is actually asking, what was the artist's name again from before?
Sarah Ezell, Ezzell. She's not on social media, sadly. She's on Facebook, but she's dancing in Europe now.
Okay.
And let me go to this photo because this was the photo.
Sorry, Bob meant the photographer from before, the one.
Oh, Anne Brigman.
Brigman, okay.
Yeah, Brigman, yeah.
Great. So I'll type that in the chat.
So Sarah says, you know, so I start looking for abandoned places, and I find that there is an abandoned greenhouse in Yonkers. Now, maybe people don't know in New York, but you know, no one would think that you'd have anything so beautiful in Yonkers. But yes, Yonkers is filled with gems for photography. And this greenhouse obviously was abandoned for many years. And we go there, and I snap this photo. And this, by now, I had a Nikon D7000, still not full frame, DX sensor. But I think I was using the 24 to 70 lens, which is a very good lens from Nikon. And I took this photo. By the way, that's like a poisonous ivy in front of her, which I didn't know.
No, really? Was she okay afterwards?
She didn't get anything.
Okay, great.
So, but when I took this photo, it was, for me, the beginning of actually finding my voice, right? It was, and I gotta tell you, the first time you take a photo that you recognize yourself in the photo. I didn't realize that I was doing that in the street photography. But when I took this photo, it reminded me that that's what I was looking for. That's what I wanted. I wanted to recognize my longing, my pain, my anguish, my looking for redemption, for elevation. I was looking for that in my images. And so in this image, I can honestly say that I found that. I said, wow, well, you know, this is something that I need to keep reproducing in my work.
Amazing. Yeah, it seems like everything from all of your paths kind of came together in one. The emotion of the street photography, the dance background, this is where it comes together.
But here's the dilemma now, right? Sarah didn't want to work with me because my work in her eyes was just devoid of, I don't know, of what she considered artistry, right? There's only so many photos you can take of a dancer doing an arabesque, an attitude, or standing in fourth. After a while, they are going to start looking like every other photo. And so that was my dilemma. I was producing so much work because of social media. And I don't want to, and I realize that some folks do this to get paid. So I used to shoot students and I'd get paid for it, especially in the summer season. And when you're shooting that, you do have to reproduce. You have to do a lot of work. The girls, when they came to New York, they wanted to be on 42nd Street, doing a high attitude, and they wanted that shot. But that no longer spoke to me, right? I needed to go in another direction for my own work. So I think for everybody that's here, you have to separate the work you get paid for and the work that you do for yourself, right? The work that you get paid for, you've got to produce for the client. But for me, the work that I was doing for me had to speak about me. It had to be a reflection of some crazy marriage between the artistry of the dancer and my heart. And somehow I had to meld those two together. So what's going to happen? This is the dilemma. I had a very wide circle of dancers that I worked with. But in order to achieve something so singular and so profound, honestly, that went from here to like this number of dancers.
Really?
Yes.
And that was your choice?
That was my choice. Because you can describe what I just described to a dancer, and she's going to be like, oh my God, that sounds cool. And then when you take her out to that environment where you feel that all these deep emotions, she's going to give you an arabesque.
Yeah.
Because that's where I look good. And you have to respect that because, it's the photos are for her as well, or for him. But at the same time, they weren't understanding where I was going. So I learned that real quick after climbing a very tall mountain and not getting the photos that I wanted. And it was like a 5-hour day, and I didn't get any photos that I liked. But in terms of locations, right? In New York City, your locations are like, you can't count them. But now, in order to do what I wanted to do, the locations shrink again to like just this.
Okay.
Here's the challenge. I work Monday through Friday, and I want to build this amazing portfolio. I can only do it on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. But, in essence, that's what I ended up doing. So I started reaching out to dancers and seeing them and studying them. And I got this cool, cool little inner circle of artists that trusted me just from those photos that I got from Sarah. And that's the breakthrough for everybody, right? Huh. Everybody wants to work with the pro dancers, but you've got to show them something where, you have to remember they're dancing these pieces and they're pretending to be these characters. When these characters feel pain, they express that pain, joy. They express the whole constellation of human emotion. And as a photographer, if you want to capture that and you want to work with them, they've got to believe that you can be able to do that kind of work.
Yeah, and you mentioned a word that that we spoke about before on the phone, trust. That, to have that trust between the photographer and the model. So, and you got that through fine-tuning your work to show something that they can believe in and believe in you and the work, right?
And also respecting them. If, a lot of photographers in dance, not a lot, there's not many of us, but a few of them have expressed to me that, oh, she's being too picky. Oh, I thought it was a great shot. No, don't do that. You're not 500 years old, right? Ballet is 500 years old or older. And these professionals work 8 to 10 hours a day at their craft. So when they tell you that's not a good photo, don't post it, don't use it, don't argue why they shouldn't be rigid. Out of respect for an art form that's way older than you and will be here long after you're gone, respect the artist and respect the craft. So that gained me a lot of trust.
That's a great feedback. Actually,
yeah.
We have a question. I hope you don't mind.
No, please.
JSH asks, how do you go about recruiting dancers in the beginning, in your mid-career, and now? Do you have any stories about recruitment?
Yeah, in the beginning, I Facebook and social media is awesome.
Mhm.
So I started meeting young dancers, pre-professionals who danced in the city. So for Gelsey Kirkland, Ellison Ballet, you know, two schools that are amazing in the city. And you know, I would respectfully, if they're, you know, obviously under 18, I'd say, hey, can I speak to your mom or dad, right? You know, I wouldn't make plans with a 14-year-old to go shoot,
Of course, yeah.
because that's the best way to come across as a creep. Uh, and you know, once I got the trust of the parents, I said, this is what I want to do. Then you know, I started working with them. But then, as you see what photos they're liking and who they're liking, then you get to see the dancers that are in the studio companies of the big companies, like ABT has a studio company, right, where they take the best pre-professional dancers and they groom them to bring them into the company.
Mhm.
And I started working with those dancers next.
Okay.
And they're always looking for photos, and they're always looking to get some kind of media. So it's not as hard as you think. And those dancers in 2 or 3 years are going to be in the company. So if you invest in them, then suddenly you're in the company,
Right.
you know?
Because you're on the
And
same path with them.
yes, exactly. Like I just kind of honed in on a generation of them, and that just kept expanding. Then it came to the point where it wasn't hard at all. I didn't have to. I had built a portfolio to the point where people were coming to me. Hey, I'm coming to New York City. I'd love to do a shoot with you.
That's great.
Or hey, if you're ever in Florida, you know, let's do something in Florida. So it takes time, and don't betray anyone's trust, please. Like if they say don't post the photo, don't post it.
Right. Actually, when you just mentioned that about if they say don't post the photo, then don't post it, we got some very positive feedback from a few of the attendees. They were saying,
Yeah,
absolutely, amen, yes. You
yeah, I
know,
saw some of that. And
nice.
listen, I've been deeply, deeply hurt by that, because there have been some times where it was an absolutely beautiful photo in the environment, the light, but you know, the dancer's back leg instead of this was like even not even sickle, just this. And she was like, no. And you know, I'm too lazy, so in Photoshop you can twist it up a little bit, but and some photographers do that, right? But and I'm not here judging either side, right? I
Right.
am truly too lazy, and I don't have the skill set. So like I've tried, and it looks so bad. Yeah. So anyway, but let's get back to my next.
I have to jump in though, Luis.
Yeah.
Thank you for not doing it. That's all.
Oh.
Whether it's due to your laziness or whatever, I don't care. I don't believe we should be, you know, messing with their feet or whatever.
You know, so I want to kind of dig into some of the photos from my Abandoned series. So, and these are the photos where like it's a lot of dedication. It's like 4:30 in the morning. You pick up the dancer, and you're going somewhere. Am I still sharing? No.
No, not at the moment. So
Okay. And you're waking up this poor dancer, and am I sharing though now?
no. Click on share screen.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
There we
There we
go.
go. All right. So I'm sharing my screen now, right?
Actually, we're seeing the Microsoft Word as well.
Okay.
Just
So
click on the.
how about now?
There we go. Nice.
All right.
So we're seeing the thumbnails
So
right now.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning. You're taking this dancer, and you're going to a place you haven't seen, because I would do research online, and I'd see people's photos that they took on a hike somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, that looks cool. So I'd grab, you know, from this very small stable of dancers, and we would go out and take a risk, right? And so the first photo I want to share is my homage, right, to Anne Bergman.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to shoot in a bamboo forest, but I don't have the budget to travel to a country that has beautiful bamboo forests. But after searching Google for a long time, I actually found one in New Jersey.
Hey.
So, So, you know, it goes to show that you can, if you're looking for something, you can find it in the tri-state area. But, you know, we weren't really supposed to shoot here. And a lot of these photos, and I don't want to encourage this, but, you know, in this time of my life, I went to places that I wasn't supposed to go. I wasn't supposed to shoot. You needed a permit, you needed a license. And I just ignored all these things. You know, and you know, there's people who say that's foolish and people who say right on. You know, I don't want anyone's judgment, but you know, this is how it was.
I'm pretty confident you weren't the only one, Luis.
Yes, I know, but I just don't like encouraging it because what have you. But in this photo, and this is Michaela Kelly, and she's dancing in Europe too now. But she was here in the States, right? So these are one of those pre-professional dancers that I invested a lot of myself into, and they invested into me. And we saw this tree stump, and there's a lot of bugs in there, by the way. So kudos to her. She's so gutsy. But you know, we worked through this process together because I knew I wanted her in the tree stump. But you know, the process to get to this image is about 10 minutes, right? Of thinking, of talking. So a lot of photographers will give you the impression that somehow, yes, this is my photo, and yes, I came up with this, you know, on my own. Wow, that's amazing. But in reality, that's one of the joys of working with an amazing artist, is that you both feed off of each other. Right. And so this final pose, you know, she came up with the legs. And when I saw the way she positioned her legs, then I knew how I wanted my arms to be, right? Her arms, I should say. And, you know, her hair got stuck behind her. I run out there. I pull the hair out from her back and I, you know, let it flow. And then we take the photo.
Amazing. A quick question about this.
Yeah.
Are you using lighting or is it a little beam of sunlight? Because she's so well lit in this kind of dark bamboo forest.
It's overcast.
Okay.
Shooting at a pretty good ISO, I think, if I remember right. It was like maybe 500. I'm shooting with an 85. And no, Douglas taught me about zone editing.
Okay.
And, you know, he kind of expressed to me like how your eye, its dynamic range, you see all the subtle, you know, shadows, dark, the interplay between light and dark. But usually when you take a photo with a camera, it's very flat, you know, the lighting sometimes. So, you know, certain areas of the photo, I darken. And some I accentuate the light. So I create that three-dimensional lighting just by darkening and lightening certain areas.
In other words, your editing skills improved.
Yes. But this is all natural light. It is possible to take a photo in natural light.
And you're using Lightroom, Photoshop, Capture One, any?
Capture.
Particular? What is it?
Capture One.
Capture One. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Lightroom and Photoshop. So okay. It's weird. I think you could do all of this in Photoshop, but the skill level is still not there. So between all three apps, I'll edit that one image.
Okay, nice.
To eventually get what I need, and I should honestly do a better job. So
that's good to me.
So here's another photo. This is oh, and I got to mention this. In order to do some of this type of work, some classically trained ballerinas will never give you this. And you'll find some that can give you these interesting shapes, but most won't be able to. So I started looking into contemporary ballet companies, right? Because in these companies, they still wear point shoes, but the way they express their lines is very, very different. And this is a difficult pose for anybody. And, you know, we worked on this for like 10 minutes. And when she finally nailed it, I knew I had found something beautiful. And that's natural light as well. I mean, it was just one of those things where the light there was not a cloud in the sky. Suddenly a cloud went over and it partially lit her face, like diffused it. And it really worked well. I know we don't have that much time, so let me kind of.
I think we have hour and a half, depending on, you know, how we're doing, how we're feeling. So, yeah. Just,
this is in Staten Island,
your time.
right? This is low tide, and this was a pier that burned down, I forgot, maybe in the 40s or something. And it was low tide, and I bring the dancer out. I know I want her on this column, whatever it is. And people ask, well, how did she get up there? And I'm like, well, she basically, I got on my knees. She got on my back. I stood up, and she was able to get on. But I love connecting the human form to these environments where human beings are gone, right? Like they've left, decay has set in. And again, this is another natural light photo, but there was a lot of reflection coming off the snow. And for whatever reason, some overcast days are just magical, and the light just kind of beams down through the clouds in a way that's just beautiful. This is actually a mansion in Yonkers that you can book this mansion for $3,000 a day. And this is the garden outside the mansion. So I just basically snuck in with her. This is in Staten Island as well. It's an abandoned warehouse. This is not the original, the final edit, but this is off of Facebook. All these images are from Facebook because it was faster for me to get them. But I loved it so much. This is in Pennsylvania. It's a penitentiary where they allow you to go in and take photos. I think it's the Eastern Penitentiary, right? And one of my favorite photos, she just looks great. It's such a simple pose. But again, this is me kind of leaving the classical poses and trying to do new shapes with ballet.
Yeah, and all these environments, like, it just really affects the work more than a studio would. You're playing with the subject and the environment. It's amazing.
And here, again, I'm trying to link the human form to what human beings have left behind and what nature is doing to reclaim it. And this is in the fall. So we've got those beautiful red leaves. And, one of my favorite photos as well, just her falling away, holding on to that metal rope. And, it's just one of those images that work. Here's another one from the bamboo forest. So that's why I show you Anne Brigman's work, because I didn't realize it at the time when I saw it, but her seeking to connect the human form to the environment, and my own original Depression era work where I was trying to say something about myself, it all just comes together here. And like this one is great. We climbed a mountain to get to this abandoned structure. This branch was bent like this. And, if you're working with an artist that understands what you're looking for, then you can get these beautiful shots. And I rarely say that my photos are beautiful, but I really do love this photo. Because I think it's just unique.
I agree with you.
Here's another one where she's standing on my shoulders and we're trying to get that window look. Another thing that you'll find, and I don't want to go through all of these, I don't want to keep, you get the idea. But I think some of the things that you'll find as you keep shooting dance is that you start to run out of gas, right? Like you start to think, well, what else can I do? How do I challenge myself? And so I decided that I was going to challenge myself with working with two dancers, right? And working with two dancers to create something beautiful is twice as hard, because now you have to mix two personalities and somehow hope that they can create something beautiful.
Are these two related? They look like siblings.
No, they're not. They're not. These are dancers from Arch Ballet in New York City. But they always had such good chemistry together when I worked with them separately. And I said, hey guys, let's go shoot together. And this isn't in a studio. In the 20s, on the West Side, they have a lot of these galleries. And so I guess they were moving stuff out of the gallery. So we were just driving by and heading to another location, and I saw them, and we went out when no one was looking and arranged them. This is someone else's work. I guess it's disrespectful, but we arranged it and we used them as props to get this photo.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Geometry.
Yeah, I love it.
And what year is this, by the way, just to do a time check on
Well,
where
these
we
are
are in your journey?
very recent. This is about 3.5, 4 years in. I'm pretty
Okay.
mature and I know what I want. I know what I'm, well, I don't want to say I know what I'm doing because I think if you saw me working, it doesn't come across. But I feel like I know what I'm doing, right?
Well, the photos definitely speak for themselves. They look great.
These two dancers work together a lot, and I love this. This was very early in the morning. This was Jacob Reese Beach and the Rockaways. They had this really old pier, and we went out there, and we worked through the legs, try to get that symmetry. I wanted them to combine their arms in such a way where the hands still looked pretty, and I love that energy. Oh, this was up on a mountain. Actually, I don't remember which one. I have to look through my notes. But one of the secrets to shooting in the winter is wait till March, because you'll get these 45 or 50-degree days, and it had just snowed the day before, and then the next day was like 48 degrees. So these girls never danced together, but I've seen them dance as individuals, and I knew that if I brought them together, we could create something beautiful. So this is one of the images we made. Again, these dancers were in the ABT studio company, so they weren't even in the company yet. But again, I forged those relationships with the studio companies, and and I got that trust. We were able to go out and just get some really cool photos. These are company dancers from Kelsey Kirkland. Again, at the beach, trying to figure out lines. So when you feel like your work is getting stale, really challenge yourself with a shoot. Uh, I built my portfolio on Saturday and Sunday mornings. I didn't have a lot of time, so I basically worked Monday through Friday thinking about how to do my shoot. And I think that's what I loved about the change in the focus of my work, is when I decided that I wasn't going to care about social media. I wasn't going to be feeding social media. I was going to work. When it came to my work, I was going to treat it in the same way that Van Gogh treated his work, right? Van Gogh spent all day in the fields painting, and his brother Leo supported him. So I looked at it as like my job was Theo, right? My job lets me spend all day shooting. Not every day, but it supported me while I was doing that. So I love the fact that I didn't have to shoot to get money, so that I could really take my time and do these projects. But even if you're a photographer here and you're shooting to make money to pay the bills, set aside projects that are for you, because that's where you really grow as an artist, in my view.
That's great advice. Yeah, just to not have that pressure, and it really opens up some possibilities.
Exactly. And now, by the way, the dancer before this photo here, Rachel, she was in the studio company then. And when I took this photo, she was an ABT apprentice. So she was in the company. And this is a sculpture. Now remember, when I worked for Channel 11 in the city, I always remembered this sculpture. I liked it. And I always wanted to do a shoot there. So this wasn't really on a weekend. So I wanted to get it so bad that I was on my lunch break, and they met me in front of there. We went into a Starbucks. They got changed into their Leos. Now, mind you, this is in the middle of the day in the 40s on the east side.
Wow.
And we go running over to the sculpture, and I knew I had two minutes. So one thing, if you're going to be shooting in a location where you don't have a lot of time, we practice the posing across the street. So I was practicing with them across the street.
Nice.
We felt we got it. We ran across, and we got the shot. And then security came and told us to leave.
But like, it was a 2-minute gap, you said, right?
Yeah, 2-minute gap.
Wow.
Now, this is interesting, right? This is me trying to do something
I love
different.
This photo.
I team up with other artists, right? Because you have artists that are sculptors. There's so much digital artists now where they have projectors and they project things and light shows. And I mean, the sky's the limit. So I partnered with these two artists, and what they had was they projected this beautiful window scene, and it was raining, right? And I have video of this. We also did a video. And I worked with these two dancers from Arch Ballet. They're a modern ballet company. And I got this photo and I knew I loved it. Right. So they're not really at a window, it's a projection. But I was never going to find this window in real life. So this is a great example of teaming up with other artists to try to create something unique.
So this was a projection in a studio, is that right, Luis?
In their studio, yes. Just on their wall. Yeah, they just projected it on their wall, and we got some benches, and we just worked through these poses.
Very cool.
Yeah. This is in Yonkers, guys. I wish you guys, if you're anywhere from New York, this is Yonkers, right? These are these gardens in Yonkers. It's Untermeyer Gardens. Untermeyer Gardens. Now, let me tell you something. If Untermeyer Gardens was in New York City, you'd have to pay $40 or $50 to get in it. But since it's in Yonkers, you can just walk in for free. Now, this is obviously a pool there that was abandoned, but the rest of the gardens are beautiful. But I had these Leos, and I felt like I wanted to do kind of like a yin-yang type photo with the dancers. And, this is another one that I love.
Yeah, I mean, I have to twist my head. I mean, I'm floating in space with this one. I like it.
Yeah. It's so a very long-winded way of saying, stretch yourself, because you need to, and plan your projects. Don't worry about expectations or trying to meet other people's expectations. I really don't. My Instagram right now, if you want to switch to social media, is dying. Like, I was at 80,000. I think I'm down to 63,000, but I don't care, right? Because, and I haven't shot actually in about 6 months or longer, maybe, because I'm thinking of where to go next and what to do next. And I think I still want to shoot dance, but these are the kind of projects that interest me more. Let me just bring this up. So this series is called Emergence, and I traveled to Florida. I wish I had the budget to travel more to do photography, but the family was going to Sarasota, so I knew some dancers there from Sarasota Ballet. So again, I had built the portfolio, they trusted me, so we went out and did some work. I love this photo. Obviously, I desaturated the water, but there's just something about it in this swan pose that I love. Again, and another thing about weather too, I take a lot of risks in the sense that if I go up a mountain, it could start raining, or if it snowed the day before, or if it's going to snow when I'm going on location. Those things don't deter me. I try to plan for them, but it was a beautiful day in Sarasota, and then it started raining. But I didn't say, well, let's start when the rain stops. I was like, no, let's keep going. And so I love this photo of her jumping out of the water.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's great advice too. Just to make plans, but also be willing to improvise and not give up on things if things are changing. That's good advice.
One of the great things about, and I know a lot of photographers that are on here probably are studio photographers, and that's a whole other beast. You know what I mean? Because you go from a studio environment where you have total control to working outside where you have no control. And I've done studio work. I haven't shared any of it here. But for me, I love being in the environment, and I love not having that level of control. I love having the challenge of trying to make it look like I had that level of control, even though I didn't, right? When I was outside. But people always ask, how deep was the water here? And I'm like, it wasn't deep. She's just very strong. I think it was maybe like not even 2 feet, like maybe 1.5 feet, but it looks like she's really emerging from a deep water, right?
Yeah.
This is also in Sarasota, and this whole series was called Emergence, and I love that sense of her, looking into that darkness, right? What's down that path, and her strength in that moment. But are there any questions? I feel like I'm babbling.
You're not babbling. We're just all fascinated by your whole story and these beautiful images. I'm checking to see if there's any questions, but I think we're all caught up for now.
Yep. Nope. We're all good on questions.
Great. And so I want to talk about how I reworked my work in urban settings. Because,
Because here's the picture I want to hear you talk about, Luis.
Which one?
Well, the on the bottom row, second to the last.
Yes, this is Central Park. Yeah, Bethesda Terrace in Central Park.
That is glorious right there.
So this is one of those photos. Now, if you've ever been in Bethesda Terrace, please understand that there are a million human beings there, pre-COVID, right? It's such a tourist spot, and we were sort of setting up for the shot. There's dogs coming by. There's everything in their mother. The lighting was tough because obviously there was not a cloud in the sky, so the background is super bright. So I did my best with the edit, right? But I wanted to desaturate the yellows and everything. I just wanted her to be like that focus. But there was this miracle of 10 seconds where for some reason, the waters parted. And what I told her, and here's a good trick. I think photographers sometimes give the impression that I saw that through the lens and I got that photo one shot, right? What I told her to do was to bring her arms all the way above her head and then bring them down. And I went into burst mode. 7 shots a second. I don't care. Because through that little viewfinder, I may not see when her hands and her arms are in that perfect position.
Yep.
So I often tell my dancers when they're trying to get these beautiful arms, because arms are tough, very tough to get looking beautiful in hands. I make them move so that I can get the photo that I want. So she's moving through this photo and I did a burst. And that's the photo that I chose from the 7. And I think when you look at contact sheets from like the amazing photographers of the 19th century and 20th century, you'll see that they took 15 photos of the scene, right? Some of them don't. Some of them are one shot and goes. But even the pros using film, they're there cranking, taking shots because they're trying to get the right moment. So that's something I do. I don't do it for every shot because you obviously can't really do that for everything. But for arms, it's a go-to for me. If they're moving their arms a lot, I'll definitely try to do a quick burst, 3 to 7 shots a second to see what I get.
Now, Luis, we've got the light coming in from behind her, but she is well lit. So are you?
Oh, I popped the onboard flash on the camera.
Okay.
Sorry, not the onboard, the SB900.
Okay.
Actually, that ties into a question that James Patterson asked.
Right.
Do you ever use artificial light outdoors? And when using ambient light, do you use reflectors or other modifiers?
The reflectors are tough for me because I'm alone. So it's really tough for me to use reflectors. So I don't.
And like you said, you use that SB900, which you can buy at B&H, by the way. I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yeah. But I rarely use flash, to be honest with you, because not because I have some like artsy fartsy reason for it. I just don't, but in that case, that was a tough shot to get. So I used my flash. I wanted to introduce you to Rachel Richardson, because she's my daredevil dancer.
Yeah, this looks almost like King Kong in reverse.
Yeah, this is a crazy phase that I went through where I was on rooftops and, I'm balancing on those 2 beams. She's obviously balancing way more than I had to. But I wanted to rediscover shooting in urban settings where I didn't feel like I was trying to copy, the ballerina project. So this one is another photo that I don't advise anyone take. But, this was me reimagining urban settings. This is Tessa. I wanted to shoot in the park, but I love the reflection coming off of the table. And, it was raining, but we went with it. And it's really one of my favorite photos of her. This is in Chicago. I work with male dancers. I don't have a ton of shots from them. And I think, I work with him because his lines are amazing. There's a handful of dancers that I wish I could work with. I mean, they're so big that maybe they wouldn't even work with me. But their lines are so beautiful that, I typically try, if I'm going to work with a male dancer, I work with ones like Stefan here, who's just, just beautiful. Okay, this story, right? The story behind this picture. We were driving back from a shoot, and I'm getting onto the highway, and I see this scene. I had never seen this scene coming back from Staten Island, and there were no cars for some reason.
Huh.
So I stopped my car, and I get in front of it. Now, mind you, this is a kind of like on the right is the ramp where you're going in, and then the left is where the cars are. So you're not supposed to have cars in this section that I'm in. So I stop my car. I get in front of the car, and the lighting was horrible, but I said, oh, well, let's take a silhouette. But I love this photo just because, I know that that's not a photo that you're going to get easily. And so for me in urban settings, I'd recommend trying to get angles and shots that are not obvious, right? Like this isn't Wall Street, but obviously it's an urban photo. But again, it's from a different angle. I'm working with the light that's there. It's not an obvious shot. This is also in Wall Street.
Yeah.
Working with urban structures that are not the traditional, yellow cabs or, how do I say,
Yeah, I'm so impressed with your ability to connect the subject with the environment. I'm going to say that again. It's just so relevant, so apparent in all of your work.
Thank you. This one, the story, everyone asks me, is this fake? And it isn't. If you Google piano under Brooklyn Bridge, you'll find that someone dumped a piano under the Brooklyn Bridge. So I had to go, right? So I go running there with Rachel, and she hits me with this pose, and I just thought it was so beautiful. And this was actually published, this photo. But again, stay on top of what's happening in your city. I do a lot of Google searches like sculpture parks, sculptures that are going up in the city. Because, in the summers, artists will portray new work, or they'll do stunts like this, put a piano under the bridge. Find out what artists are doing in your neighborhoods, in your cities, because you'll find that they're going to put stuff, and they're going to be doing stuff that you can use, material or structures or props that you can bring into your own photography.
Yeah.
And here, this is on the east side. This was a hard shot to get because I wanted to somehow link her to the sculpture above her. And to get her finger to touch that tip, I was doing squats, going up and down, trying to figure out how to get it. But I love this photo. I mean, it's a little busy, things are happening, but again, it's just reinventing how to work in urban settings, so that I felt that it was my unique take on them. Obviously, rooftops, right? Like this is a rooftop in Hoboken, New Jersey, that I still have access to, which is great. But it's just another different take. I'm not supposed to be here. These are the windows in Grand Central. So what I did is I parked my car in the garage, and then I went out the garage. But only cars are supposed to go out through there. But I went out there, and we walked to the side, and then I threw her up on the window there, and we took this shot. And this again is natural light. It's just the sun was in front of her, and it just looked beautiful. Instead of just taking the classic train photos, I visited the Transit Museum here in New York City. And, we're not supposed to shoot there without, knowledge. And, now that I look at this photo, my own critique is that I should have closed the door behind her. I think so. I don't know why, but I think I should have closed it. But in any case, I loved the feeling of that. And, I wanted to use my photography in this photo to say something about 9/11. I lived through that here. I broke my leg on that day. It was a sucky day for everyone, a tragedy. And This is the open air memorial in Jersey. And so I went there with this dancer on 9/11. I always post this photo and one other one. And on the sides of this memorial are the names of the people that were lost. But that's just me in an urban setting saying something about what happened to New York City.
Yeah, it's very clear.
My daredevil again, Rachel. So I have a lot of photos of her because she was crazy enough to follow me. But that's kind of it, guys. You know, oh, and taxi cab. I love this photo. Uh,
That's
we
great.
we were walking around in Brooklyn and we came across this cab, a vintage cab. And I just asked the driver, "Hey, can you let me take a photo in there?" So I slipped him $10 and I got in the driver's seat and I just, she got in there and she did the pose and we got the shot. And one of my favorite shots of the city, while I'm in the city.
Amazing.
So that's kind of it, guys. If you have any questions, hopefully I covered everything the right way.
You covered everything and then some. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your images and a lot of insider tips.
Yeah, I loved hearing your story, Luis, of what kind of brought you into this, and then the journey that you went on and that you're continuing on. You're making some amazing images, and I look forward to what you come up with next.
Sure, yeah, and I almost feel like I was gonna stop shooting dance. So I'm not sure where my head is right now, right? But there's a few projects that I really want to do. I need to get some financing because it's going to require some travel. But yeah, I'm still in it. I still want to produce some good work.
Amazing. Yeah, we're getting a lot of positive feedback. A lot of people saying thank you for all of your stories and what you shared. Awesome job. Love your work. Thank you for sharing your story.
And if everyone could send me, if they're on Instagram, just send me an email because I'd love to follow you back and get to know you. I'm a very social person. Obviously, I'm a morning person because I do most of my work in the morning. And so I'd love to get to know everybody who was on. It'd be fantastic. Oh, Jean is there. I know Jean. Jean Lubin is, look her up on Instagram. She shoots out on Malibu area of California. So if you're out in Cali, you can reach out to her too.
Somebody's asking, Anthony is asking, wonderful story. Is there going to be a book, another Rizzoli meetup?
Oh yeah, that's right. We went there for the NYC Dance Project when their book was coming out. I do want to do a book.
Okay.
And I want to tie in, my experience with depression and anxiety, because I think that's powerful, especially now and with this, dealing with COVID. I'm sure people are rattled. It's not a comfortable time to be living through.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lessons that I learned going through that terrible time in my life is what's keeping me centered and keeping me stable and hopeful, because there's always hope. And my work is about hope, right? So I definitely want to do a book about that and tie those two together.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be just an amazing book. And thank you for your honesty. Some people have said that in the story, but yeah, just for being so, transparent with your whole background. It's a great thing.
It's a pleasure. We all go through it. It's a reality of being alive.
Yeah.
But life is a miracle. Just you keep pushing your art. If you have to work, if you do photography, and I want to stress this again, if you do photography to pay the bills, make sure that you do projects for yourself, right? Just always do projects for yourself. Because I think that's where you're going to really connect with who you are.
Definitely.
It'll keep you from burning out too.
Yes, big time.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Luis. Look forward to seeing what comes next. Max?
Yeah, thank you both, Luis and Ron from Deux, and Luis Pons. Thank you so much for joining us. So glad that we could have this conversation today. And yeah, as you can see by all of this, all these chat comments, there's a lot of positive feedback. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Guys, please look me up. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
See you at the next one. Thanks.
Yeah.
So much.
See you.
Thanks.